Okay, great. So, hi everyone. My name is Jimmy. A little bit about myself. I lead the entire data security practice at Zscaler. It's been a year. I'm with the organization more than a year. And from a data security point of view, it's been more than 18, 19 years ever since the DLP or data security tools are coming into India market. I've been working on them. So long journey with data security. I'll let Anup introduce himself, though he's a very known face in the industry. So Anup, please go ahead.
Well, my name is Anup Tongaonkar. I'm the Group CISO for Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. It's been around, say, 8 years in the ABG group now, or 5 years in the corporate, and now as a CISO in the ABFRL business. Well, it's been a 2.5 decade journey. I started long back and seen the entire evolution of how information security transitioned to cyber security and now become a kind of a business enabler to a large extent. Okay, I don't want to really go along with the introduction, but yeah, it's been quite a fun and exciting times that we are into, and certainly add a bit in this discussion if I could. Yeah, that's the endeavor.
Great. So, to set the context, there'll be few questions, Anup, which we'll be asking. It could be before and after Zscaler. It could be in terms of how you deal with your daily situations, because being at this position is the most difficult job you do in an organization, I feel. You have to take a lot of decision, a lot of calls on the go, and that's what is the most challenging, and we would like to discuss that. Now, to set the stage, I'll put it this way. Before Zscaler, what were the most common security and access challenges you were managing day to day? And after implementation, what changed most noticeably in how you run the security operations?
Well, I would say, see, traditionally, when you look at the solutions that we had, okay, they were serving good. Till the time, the overall focus was that the business will run around and data center will be the constant everywhere. But after digitization, there was a lot of change in the overall architecture and the landscape as well. So, and that time we realized that branch breakout, if you look at our retail landscape itself, we have a cloud, we have data center, on-prem data center, we have stores, we have digital brands, we have e-commerce landscape. Okay. So, since considering multiple landscape, you cannot ask everybody and anybody to come to data center and then go through the data center from a single. Obviously, it adds a lot of latency, user experience also gets impacted. We also see that the agility, scalability, governance of security while accessing internet, and obviously, if the compliances challenges. For example, when we looked at the earlier stand before Zscaler, that we have a on-prem proxy, but for users who are using laptop, they were able to access internet, open internet when they go home. Okay, so on the same company laptop. So that was a risk which we were not able to mitigate. So we wanted to look at a platform which can integrate all these challenges, integrate with all these sources, and address our challenges that we have. And obviously, we were also looking at a zero trust space, which can be zero trust. And second thing, it can be scalable when and when required. And fortunately, obviously, we evaluated multiple solutions, and we zoomed on to Zscaler at that point. And it was a group strategy. So the entire ABG group per se is currently on Zscaler products. So I think that's how I could see. And post that, once we moved on to that journey, obviously it was more seamless. The policy standard were easy. The compliance improved. Okay. Then obviously user experience, that was the most important part, because what used to happen is the traditional setup. If there are any issue with the data center, also it used to impact the internet access services. Correct. So that was a bad experience for the users, and for us, like although our services were up and running, it still used to be a downtime for the users. So considering all that, I think we thought and after implementing this platform, I think that problems were all resolved, the challenges went away, and to a large extent we can more focus on business prerogatives rather than with operational challenges.
Hmm. Great, good to know that. Especially, I believe pandemic was the main aspect scenario when the remote users were a difficult task. Now, if I have to talk about the hybrid workforce like you have, right? When you think about containment, especially when you spoke about remote users, third parties, what was the harder to execute quickly before and after Zscaler? Like, for example, I mean, what approaches or control you have made for the containment to be more practical without disrupting the business?
Well, see, I would go pre-COVID. So remote access was on need to know basis. Means whenever there is a requirement, specific requirement, only that time we were giving remote access. So not many users have had remote access. Obviously, it had all the controls, but if you look at that traditional architecture of remote access, it is that once you log into the VPN concentrator or whatever technology you're using, the user is almost like part of the network. Okay, so the entire internal attack surface is exposed. So he can laterally move anywhere and everywhere. Okay. Fortunately, what happened was that when we were evaluating technologies, and we thought that a logical progression to move to remote access would be Zscaler, since they were at that time offering zero trust, and the zero trust architecture was, it was a new development in the overall product space, and we thought that this will certainly minimize our challenges to a large extent. Okay, therefore we said, okay, we move to Zscaler. And in 2018 or 19, we implemented ZPA, Zscaler Private Access. And we were fortunate because COVID came in 2020, and we could scale up 10x to 20x approx. Okay, during that time, and most of our users now become remote. Now the earlier challenge also was that whenever users were moving outside the environment, okay, and I mean they are accessing from their laptop to our environment, we didn't know about their status of internet access, whether their PCs are compromised or not. So that trust deficit were always there when it comes to remote access. But Zscaler, since it's a single agent approach, okay, what happened is that whenever a remote access is provided to a user, we knew that it's our company laptop. There's a Zscaler agent sitting out there, which will ensure that he is not accessing any malicious site or download any malware. And then again, then connecting to our network and only giving access to the applications rather than giving a open access to the entire network. So the surface attack reduces a lot with that, and there is no chance that he can move laterally. Obviously, if he's an attacker, he can try different things, but to a large extent, the lateral movement of a VPN user, traditional VPN user, was stopped because of this solution. And obviously, the scalability and the features that came in along with Zscaler with two-factor authentication, etc. That was certainly strengthened the overall security posture at our end as well.
Okay, great. Anup, so you mentioned about lateral movement. I mean, that's pretty interesting topic itself, right? Because any attacker which comes in, for it to make an impact, a lateral movement is the first step, and stage six in a kill chain. I mean, because once that happens, I mean, it's pretty difficult for any adversary to be removed completely out of the network. So that's a primary aspect. So if we talk about a lateral movement, like before, what were the common constraint in limiting spread or reducing blast radius once something suspicious was underway? After Zscaler, how has your ability to limit impact improved in real terms? I mean, how do you do it?
See, one thing is you're securing things when you are accessing internet. Second thing, you are securing what so you are providing access to your internal resources. Okay. So, for example, when we implemented ZI, obviously it comes with the AV and malware protection. Okay. So anything, and we also took sandbox. So any zero day or unknown malware, if it's there, it goes to the sandbox, and then we obviously come to know that, okay, this is something which we need to take care of. So, and we also integrated the current EDR with Zscaler. So, suppose from a sandbox perspective, there is an alert, there is a complete description about what is the file and where it has come from. And obviously, the EDR also provides its own intelligence. So the SIM agent or the engineer who looks after this entire investigation details, he also gets to know about two things. One is when the incident is from coming from the incident details are coming from S1, that is our antivirus EDR, and Zscaler as well, because the sandbox also provides its investigation report. Based on that, he can take a proper decision whether it is a false or true alert, and what kind of priority it has to be assigned to that incident. Okay, so that helps in managing an incidents, obviously. The second is about when it comes to last 3 days, I just mentioned about remote access. For example, you're not giving a complete direct access to your network. You're giving through zero trust. You're only giving access to the applications. Okay, so now the remote user, once he gets authenticated authorization at the control plane, then only he can access the data plane through the apps that he is supposed to. So you are now not exposing your IP, you're not exposing your, he cannot move laterally. So all this feature comes in with the zero trust, and that helps, to reduce that blast surface. Second is that since it's now a single user, a VPN user, he's not part of the network. So I don't have to really look at how do I isolate him. So there is no major impact by isolating him. So I can, through EDR or through Zscaler also, I can just stop his access, and we can just remove that risk from our environment. So I think that becomes very, very easy to manage when it comes to response to such incidents.
That's great. Good to know. Now, whenever an incident happened, talking of an incident, right? Leaders always ask one question: what
Mhm.
data was involved and who's affected? Like, that's a basic question asked, right? So, what did it take to answer those questions with confidence for you when they ask, your leadership ask you this question, especially when we're talking about before and after Zscaler, and what's improved in how you scope and validate potential exposure today?
Well, see, this the answer lies in the visibility that you have within your environment, and I think that's what was missing in the traditional setups. Okay, and there were multiple setups, multiple consoles. It was very hard to really have a holistic visibility across what's going on. Okay, and if there is a question, then it was a immediate knee-jerk reaction, but ultimately no data supporting it. Okay, so I think with the approach or the strategy that we designed, and maybe most of the organization designed, that is the platform-based approach, gives us a single window to look at these incidents, look at the compliances, and govern this entire platform through one window. So that helps in understanding and getting a clear visibility on what's happening. Okay, for example, say ZI, if I look at what were the files that were scanned, who was actually trying to upload on a Gmail a particular data file. Okay, with DLP you get a lot of visibility and proof as well. Okay, that what exactly is something. One second, somebody is calling me. Yeah. So we get a complete visibility on what exactly is the incident about and the subsequent details. So these answers can be well documented and then reported to the management, I think. And obviously, you can have supporting evidences also to showcase that this is the way things are being managed. Does that answer the
Yeah.
question?
Yes, yes, yes. Great. So I'll come on to my favorite topic, which is going around wherever I go, is DPDP, right? So if I may have to ask you, what are the biggest practical challenge organizations facing in implementing the DPDP Act today, especially around data discovery, consent management, breach readiness? And how prepared do you think most of the enterprises really are?
Yeah, I think this is a question, Jimmy, everybody is asking. The
Mm,
good part is that people now have started understanding it, but it's still what I see is when we look at business perspective, if we actually look now, DPDPA compliance is no longer a legal checkbox. It's really an operational challenge. As you rightly talked about, data discovery comes first, and I think most of the organization don't even know where all the personal data lives. It is scattered now around cloud, on-prem, SaaS systems. Then you talked about consent management, and I think one of the major challenge is data discovery. Second is consent management, and capturing consent is one thing, but it is also about tracking it, honoring withdrawals, maintaining a full audit trail where where all the data is going. That is the second biggest challenge. Third is breach readiness. Because what Anum talked about, they talked about how zero trust tools help us with that visibility, because it's not only about breach. When breach happens, breach readiness is another critical gap. So that is the third challenge that I see, because being reactive will not cut anymore. Organizations really need a real-time detection. They need clear playbooks. They need regulatory aligned reports to stay ahead. Now, here is the catch. Most of the organization, if you ask me, they are still stuck in principle-based approach. They are having policies, they are having checklists, they are having high-level commitments, but that simply it doesn't work in today's environment. You can't manage this by just stating principle on paper. Now, with AI factor on everything for DPDP also, my request to everybody is they should really now follow really practice-based compliance. It is what is matter in AI era, because now you need to embed that privacy into every process, system, decision. You need to operationalize data discovery, consent, and security. So if you ask from challenge perspective, yes, data discovery, consent management, breach readiness, these are three main areas that are the challenges. And I think organizations have started, because there are a lot of leaders who reach out, we discuss, at least they have started talking about it. That's a good part. And so the compliance is no longer a theoretical, it's practical. Now it is operational. And I think people have started understanding it has a cultural element to it also. It's not only just technology part of it, which is essential, which is really critical. But apart from that technology, there needs to be process mapped. And with that process, a right culture needs to be mapped. So companies that succeed, they really now have started taking privacy, not as a rule. They have to think it as a way of working, of doing a business. And I think organizations have started understanding that it's a competitive advantage, not a liability, and it's a must to do. They don't have any option now.
Yeah,
So if I quickly talk about the myth that I really think, if one of the challenges, consent is just one-time checkbox. Once captured, we are done. I think this is most of what we are kind of falling trap to. Please understand, consent is dynamic, even for DPDPA, and organizations must track the consent, they must honor withdrawal, and they must maintain a full audit trail continuously, where such zero trust models can really help on. That is my take.
Yeah, I agree with Priya. So, to a large extent, people are still not aware how exactly they should go about. Okay. So, the approach I would recommend, there are two things. One is the technology, as Priya rightly said, there are two aspects of it, technology and obviously the process side. How exactly you look at the DPDP. One is that you do the assessment, do the DPIAs, look at where are your privacy assets are. Okay, through the DSPM, you can certainly have a classification done. If you are using cloud, probably if you're storing any PI data in the S3 bucket, that could. But more importantly, now the thing, the DSPM also comes with saying that, okay, scan everything and anything. I think the approach would be that you look at your processes and understand if the PI asset for certain in S3 bucket are to be stored. That is a legit storage for your PI information. Exclude those and try to look use the DSPM for rest of it, because if when you scan, there is a charges also gets applicable to you. So it's quite heavy charges. So better you segregate at least the known resources which handles PI. So you know that these are the assets which handles PI, and then scan even your EC2 instances within AWS, if you are in AWS or in data centers, to look whether your servers are having any PI information. A lot of times what happens is that we look at very larger picture and high level picture that, okay, we look at databases and S3, while there is somebody who has just downloaded some large data on his server while accessing S3 bucket. Okay, that's a major challenge. So you need to get visibility through these tools. Obviously, now when it comes to DPDP, it also looks at how's the data exposure. So whether your DLP solution is really advanced to look at it. I think one good thing which happened in last two years was that a single window approach for DLP. With Zscaler coming in with endpoint, web, and email in a single DLP solution, I think that helped me a lot, because you create one particular policy. Say for example, in DPDP case, we created PI policy that any PI data going through email, web, or endpoint channel should be immediately alerted to us. Okay, so that brings a clear visibility that who is handling the PI data, who is trying to send it across outside the organization, and then obviously we can take actions accordingly. And we had an incident response, created for that particular aspect of it. Then it comes to SaaS. You have the I love PDF and all those people are using like anything. They don't understand that there is a confidential data that goes to the public. Now with the tool that we have through Zscaler, which is CASB and some extended features, it also looks at any critical tools which are malicious or which can really have data exposure. And the policy that we have put in place, that if it's critical, straight away block. So any user who is trying to access those critical websites or SaaS tools, they are completely blocked. He won't be able to put any data on those tools. So that is the technology part of it. Okay. Now, when it comes to DPDP implementation, she mentioned the consent management anyway is a big elephant in the room. Okay. But even a simple cookie consent, when we implemented so we all obviously have users coming from international locations. Okay. So we have to look at cookie consent from a GDPR and CCPA compliance as in US. Okay. So even implementing of cookie consent on a platform itself is a major challenge. Okay, it's not so easy that you buy a tool and you just do a tick and it will get implemented. No, once you need to look at your website, you crawl the website, look at what cookies are running on the website, what it is capturing, classify those cookies. Okay, then create the policy around the cookie consent, saying that okay, we are taking this information from these cookies. Okay, that has to be so. Your implementation on the website for cookie consent has to be in line with the policies that you have created in your data privacy framework. Okay, and then application team again has a good job to do, because obviously when you put a cookie banner on a website, okay, that also has a problem. Okay, it has to sync with your overall website color schema. Obviously when it is big, it will impact your user experience. Okay, so there are a lot of things that comes into with a single cookie consent. Imagine now you're putting a consent manager on top of it, which is a very large area to play around. So I think there is a lot of things that will come. Hence, you should be ready on those front and try to start parallelly few things so that you will reach to the journey where you want to. Otherwise, last moment tools will say we will do everything, but that's not, I think, will be possible. Technology can certainly do certain things and help you out, but ultimately it's at your end also there are many changes that will come because of DPDP. I think that's my take.
Right. And I think
Yeah, go
I'll
ahead,
just
Priya.
add quickly. Yeah, I'll just add quickly on that, because in DPDPA, the penalties are huge. So if you actually see it from an incident perspective, the first question that every leadership asks and legal is always what data was touched and who could be impacted. So if we don't have right tools enabled as a leader, when we talk about these elements, when something happens, the first question they ask is what data was touched, who could have been impacted. If we don't have right tools enabled, because if we don't have right zero trust tool, it is difficult to determine exposure. Precise evidence, which is really requirement of DPDPA, we need to have that. But if you have right tools, for example, zero trust tool, at least you'll have clear mapping of the user used application access, you will have a clear visibility on that. You will have a session level visibility and logging. You will have a faster identification of affected users and system. And then at the same time, then you get more confident that you have a stronger confidence in terms of breach classification. Because the first thing you need to tell to leadership, is it high, medium, low? As per DPDPA, they may not expect you to give this categorization because as in today, they have not documented any categorization in that. But when you look at from business construct, they ask these questions that what is the severity? So in order to get to a conclusion faster, it may change later, but at an initial level, you need to have right tools which will give a stronger right answer to it. So, and for DPDPA perspective also, it is not only about responding fast, it is about responding correctly, proportionately. So these kind of a zero trust model help us from move from estimation to evidence-based answers, and we really are able to kind of quickly tell what really happened and who actually affected. And just a myth and fact here, once incident is contained, it is often a myth that scope exercise isn't important. No, no, no. As DPDPA, it requires organizations to understand the data that was affected for accountability. We need to look at the lesson learned and look at the preventive measure. It's not an optional. It's core to compliance of DPDPA. Is like what I would like to add on this. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, someone posted in the chat about AI, right? That's where most of the data is going. And I really like that question. So, talking of Gen AI, we all know Gen AI is moving fast. Okay. Uh, Regulation are tightening around Gen AI. However, since data is everywhere, from cloud to endpoint, as a CISO, Anup, okay, how do you balance innovation with data security and compliance without slowing the business? That's the biggest challenge, right? Everyone are facing as of today. So,
And that's a very good question, and a lot of organizations are facing that challenge. So initially, when we heard of the chat GPTs of the world, the straight answer was that no, okay, we will not give. But the AI euphoria was such that you cannot say no to each and everything. The CEO says, "Why are you blocking chat GPTs? Let people explore." Now, again, in retail, what happens is that there are designing teams, okay, and there's a fast fashion trend, so they have to catch up with the trend. Maybe organizations who are not aware of the risk with AI, they probably had given open access to their team so that they do whatever. But obviously, they don't know the risk that they carry. Okay, so in AI, obviously, there are two things majority. One is that user probably leaking some very critical information. Sometime from back, I heard somebody saying that, okay, accounts team, completely uploaded their account statements to get a summary of that statement on ChatGPT. So entire financial data gone in the public. So that thing is not aware, people are not aware about it. So one thing is that how do we, address this euphoria? So earlier, since we didn't had any control, there was a complete no. But the moment Zscaler released browser isolation, okay, feature, where I can give ChatGPT access, but it is a controlled access. So I think that was very good for us. The moment we saw this, that okay, this technology can help us for users to explore, immediately we took it from Zscaler, and we allowed those users who wanted to explore ChatGPTs and AI of the world, and that too securely. So that, to a large extent, that for within 6-8 months, that euphoria came down. People were happy that they were able to use and explore. Many of them, obviously, after 7-8 months, thought that it is of no use for them. Some genuine cases now started coming to us, where it seems to be that the AI can be used for certain things and it is required. Now, where the DLP and all this technology started coming in, okay, one is to get a complete visibility of Gen AI, which is accessing by our users. Okay, that visibility the Zscaler gives us. Second thing, certain 9 or 10 ChatGPT variants, ChatGPT, Gemini, okay, the major Microsoft Copilot, etc. Okay, so those we can really monitor it. For example, even at a prompt level, if somebody tries to put some PI data, see, our main concern as a retail giant is about PI, customer PI. So that is something which is our main concern. So what we do is that, okay, we look at if the prompt is injecting any PI information, obviously it can raise an alert, it can block. Okay. or somebody trying to upload some critical information, maybe it is having PI or confidential as classified in the DLP policy, we get indicators that okay, this is something which is getting compromised. Okay, this is from the user to Gen AI perspective. Okay. Uh, if LLMs, now there is second risk is about using LLMs. Now, what if the LLMs are poisoned? What if the users are trying to use the open AI LLMs, and whether that could pose a threat? So there are two ways to address it. One is that what we said, that use private OpenAI tenants. Okay, for example, Microsoft has Azure OpenAI tenant, which can be in your tenant, so there is no chance that you can explore it. There's no chance the data can go to public from that tenant. So you restrict while you really help business to create those kind of use cases through AI. At the same time, you are preventing it from exposing it to the world. The second is about testing the LLM itself. So are you conducting a red teaming for AI, whether the LLMs are really poisoned or whatever you are using, whether they are clean or not? That is also one way to look at it. Uh, this also one risk which also comes in is that the output of these LLMs, okay, whether they are copyright or not. Okay, for example, Google or Microsoft of the world says that when you are using a prompt and you're seeking some information, for example, a particular person wants a image to be generated. Now, what if that images are copyrighted? Now, if you use some X tool which doesn't support you on the copyright, you will be held responsible and liable, and there could be legal implications also. So you need to look at those when you're using LLMs. You need to look at whether the outputs are they are supported by the LLM. There are no copyright issues, and if there are any, because since the AI again has a very larger landscape, so you might come across that there could be some copyright issues that could happen during the output. But then the OEM should support you during that time. Okay, otherwise tomorrow if you're a big company or large company, you probably get sued for something which you really didn't thought of while using the AI. I think this is something which is a deepfake and all again is a very different angle. I don't want to get into that, but obviously these are some of the risks when you're using AI, Gen AI, and people should think through when they are implementing such things in their enterprises. Fantastic tool, fantastic technology, I think, but to be from a security perspective, we have to be very
Yeah,
cautious.
absolutely. And Anup, I'll just like to add based on our 2 year of experience for AI and then integrating it with DPDPA. I think what we understood from the journey, we can't see it in silos. When we look at a use case, we need to see it from a legal perspective, information security perspective, business perspective, and what is that we want to kind of put a boundary line onto it. And for example, you just talked about OEMs. I'll just give an example. We had a process of a great process of AI where we need to evaluate tools from infosec legal perspective. But at the same time, when I was auditing a recent agent, I just observed that there is a lot of telemetry data. Even being a licensed tool that we have taken, they are taking a lot of telemetry data. And when I looked at the telemetry data, it was huge, and they were not giving opting out option. So my request to all of you is think about these aspects when you are signing contract with them, because now we have signed a contract. They are saying these are bare minimums. We need to kind of have this data in order to improve our performance. They are not taking your data, but they are taking telemetry data, and that is huge. So when we go back now, we look at our contracts. We have not agreed that with our client. So that gets into a loop later. We have to inform clients, see the tool we are using, and that now we are giving a service to you is kind of passing this kind of a telemetry data. Are you okay with it? So that gets into a very different loop. So based on experience, you will come across those things, but it is really important to take care of these aspects at the contractual obligation part later than facing it later, will be my suggestion.
Okay, great. So now we all know, I mean, the technology have progressed quite a lot, right? The traditional tools we were using back then in 2010, 11, 15, right? Tools have changed a lot. Even the security tools are using a lot of AI injection into it. So do you think traditional data security models are still relevant in the age of AI, Gen AI, and especially with DPDP coming into it, right? Do we need to or do you think we need to completely rethink our strategy in terms of what tool to be adopted?
Well, the answer I would say is partially yes. Because see, the thing is, in security, in these many years, what I understood is that while you are dealing with one problem, there are two problems that comes top of it, and then while you are dealing with all three problems, there are five problems comes top of it.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
So you cannot really let the first problem go away while you have to deal with the fifth problem that came in last. Okay. So the technologies that were there for last 15 years still be there. Encryption is something, although the encryption standards may change and the algorithms may be enhanced, that is something obviously is there. But the technologies are going to be there. The controls are going to be there. For data access monitoring control was there for 15 years. It is going to be there for some more time. Okay, encryption is going to be there. So you cannot get away with this. What you need to look at is that when you look at the overall risk landscape that you are enterprise into, and you have to be very cautious about looking at what exactly you are enterprising. Because if you look at it a broader, you don't look at quantum yesterday. Okay, you look at the quantum issue when it comes to when there are solutions available, and then you start the journey early. That is fine, but just don't say that everything and anything that is going to come in next 10 years, I will think that this is a risk and this is a challenge for me. I think you need to look at practical challenges. For example, identity is a major challenge. Cloud security is a major challenge. Okay, then obviously AI, SaaS-based applications where through APIs the data is flowing to the SaaS provider. Supply chain is a critical challenge because with DPDP again, it really says that okay, even though your supplier has bad security measures and they get compromised and it's your data, you are still responsible for that. So that becomes a very large surface
Correct.
area that you have to look at. Correct. So these challenges are new. As I said, the earlier problem still remains while there are new challenges. So somehow that role of CISO, even the DPO, is becoming very critical in the enterprises. And at the same time, I think it's very exciting, I would say. So yeah, so we cannot get away with the old things. It's still be.
Absolutely, 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 absolutely. And Anup, I think I'll just add that, traditional data security models, I think they were more rule heavy. And that rule heavy is no longer sufficient. That is what I am facing every day. And in the age of Gen AI, DPDPA, data isn't confined to data centers. We all know it's across cloud, endpoint, SaaS, and it increasingly is flowing through AI system. So I think today the real risk isn't really outsider. It is how data actually is accessed, shared, and used internally. So what I really think is we all as organizations need to rethink data security from a data centric perspective. That means we need to classify our data, then need to put risk based control. We can't put everything into same bucket. Same time enable privacy and consent into the workflow, because I really feel that security isn't about building walls, as you also talked about. Same, it's about building awareness and controls around what matters most. So I think, in short, protecting data today is really about enabling, not restricting, and it's an exciting time. That is also how I see it.
Right. And I mean, you guys literally spoke about role as a CISO. So my last and the final question would be actually based on that. Now, I also see someone mentioning in the chat, so I'll combine that question with my question. So if you reflect on your roles as a CISO, time spent on firefighting, confidence and control, team workload, or audit readiness, or for that matter, migration to the new tool, especially Zscaler, right? All these multiple challenges you face in a day-to-day aspect, right? What change have been the most meaningful after you implemented Zscaler, and of course during you were implementing Zscaler? That's also the question in the chat. And one last thing, what would you want the audience to take away from your experience?
Well, you see that the CISO role has evolved, okay, in last 15, 20 years. Especially the trigger point, I would say, was ransomware, through which there are a lot of complexity that started building up. Again, going forward also, because of AI, the attacks are going to be sophisticated, obviously. Okay. Third, the regulation frameworks are going to be tightened more and more in within India also, because the thing is, government also looks at the overall threat data, the frauds and that are happening, and they will come out with some more stringent actions. Certain came in, then DPDP came in. Obviously, there will be some more that will come. So considering three, four areas and the technology advancement that's happening and creating risk. So while we say that these are overwhelming for a CISO to really cater, CISO and DPO obviously now, with DPDP coming in. It is overwhelming to really cater to these challenges. Okay, but at the same time, I look at it from a positive perspective also. If these challenges were not there, it would have not been that exciting. Okay. So now the CISO cannot no more say that, okay, my learning is done now and I can just manage the BAU. But that time is gone. So he has to completely re-energize himself, look at him that whether he is really able to manage things which are coming up and accordingly, uplift his knowledge. I think that is the key for a CISO. Again, one more thing when you talk about meaningful change is that CISOs earlier were like policy and guidelines and procedures and all that, right? They just say that, okay, these are the security policies and you have to abide with those policies. It's no more true now. Okay, because the businesses are growing, they want to grow, they want to use the technology to move ahead. No more CISO can say that, okay, you cannot do that. So I think the resistance is to a certain extent is minimizing. Okay, and CISO is now going near to the business. Okay, so business more interactions are happening because business knows that cyber is also a risk. Earlier, there was no cognizant about cyber risk. They were saying that, okay, this is support function or it is something good to have. But now they also understand that if you go live with an application without security clearances, and tomorrow if there is an issue, they will be held liable for that, and board will certainly take actions. So now things are really shaping up, and CISO is moving near to the business. Now here the CISO comes in that he has to use his experience, okay, his knowledge to understand business use cases and provide an app solution. You cannot be very strict with them, but also you cannot compromise the security. So it's a very thin line where CISOs or DPOs will be running in the organization, and I think time will tell. I think his resilience also will be tested in the coming years. So it's a difficult job, but yeah, that's how it comes to.
Yeah, and I think Anup, to answer somebody has put it in the chat how these tools help. I think the most challenge with AI aspect is shadow IT that we all are facing. That critical as a CISO, as a compliance head and global DPO, I do face that if organization asks me about the shadow aspects of IT, these tools are really critical for that because with the help of these tools, at least you can continuously monitor, automate policy enforcement, and also have granular access controls. These are the three keys that these two help, and these are the three challenges that shadow IT is giving, and such kind of a tool really help in these three areas.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think one good thing is that OEMs are also catching up to that race. Okay, they also know that this is something which is required. That's why a consolidation of platforms is happening. So Zscaler as a platform, how
Right,
many
right.
are launched, which is a very agile and very rational to that. That's the reason I think they're leading this race. But obviously, there will be more things which needs to be done that we will have to look at. But yeah, challenging environment, I understand. Good points.
Great. So that's all the questions from our side. Thank you so much, Anup and Priya.